A small-town girl, desperate to escape her cursed hometown, finally gets her shot at freedom, only to discover the real reason she's never been able to leave is written into her own blood. We open with a young woman named Amber sprinting desperately through the woods, fleeing something unseen until she trips and struggles against the slick mud and foliage. Unable to get back on her feet in time, after a chaotic struggle, she emerges from the ground drenched in blood, spitting it out and gasping for breath. The moment abruptly cuts to her working an ordinary shift at a butcher shop, dazed and disconnected from the world around her, packing raw meat for customers on autopilot. After work, she checks apartment listings and leaves yet another voicemail for a landlord named Dustin about a place she's desperate to rent. When her phone rings, it's her friend Susie instead, checking in and insisting Amber join the whole friend group for a hangout at Ray's place that night. Reluctant at first, Amber eventually agrees after a run and a quick stop at the local convenience store, where the shop owner, Keith, almost turns her away for trying to buy beer underage. Her friends Peter and Susie show up moments later with the same plan, but it's their older, nerdier friend Eric who ends up buying everyone's alcohol and snacks. Small-town life offers these teenagers little else to do besides drink and hang out together. By the time everyone gathers at the pool, Ray and Fiona are already stoned and stargazing, while the rest of the group settles in with snacks and drinks. Amber quietly warns Susie that she won't always be around to protect her from Peter, whose charm keeps hurting her every single time. Despite her promises that things will be different, meanwhile, Eric admits to Peter that he has a crush on Amber, and Peter, ever the self-proclaimed ladies' man, tries engineering a moment by proposing skinny dipping to the group. Everyone eventually piles into the pool except Amber, who quietly retreats inside, feeling disconnected from the fun altogether. Eric follows her inside and tries connecting with her, but she turns down food, admitting she's lost her appetite lately. She vents about wanting to escape this town for good, convinced it slowly consumes everyone who stays. Though Eric argues he's actually happy here, Amber lights up, imagining her first night in a real city, and touched by Eric's genuine support, she smiles, only to awkwardly dodge him when he leans in for a kiss. Back home that night, Amber finds her mother passed out drunk on the floor, and after getting her into bed, her mother mutters gratitude for having a daughter, despite her father wanting a son, along with a confusing, alarming mention of some kind of agency. Before Amber can get answers, her mother's already unconscious for the night, leaving Amber to quietly piece together on her own that she was adopted. Moments later, the power cuts out and something lunges at her in the dark, jolting her awake from what turns out to be just another exhausting nightmare. Back at work, Amber briefly hallucinates human remains inside a dumpster while taking out the trash, snapping back to reality once a coworker calls her name. She finally gets through to Dustin, who warns the apartment might slip away unless she delivers her deposit the very next day, giving her real hope she might finally escape this town for good. She breaks the news to Susie, who's devastated but supportive. Though her car has been impounded, leaving Amber needing another way to the city, Susie initially resists asking Peter for a ride, given their complicated history, but ultimately gives in for her friend's sake. The whole group decides to make Amber's move into a proper road trip, piling into Eric's SUV since no one else's car is available, only for the engine to die just outside town, stranding them in the middle of nowhere. A passing truck driver named Bernard stops to help, but declares the engine unfixable on the spot, suggesting a tow truck instead. Just as Amber's hope starts crumbling, Susie learns Bernard happens to be heading to Chicago too, and convinces him, despite his reluctance to take on a group of teenagers, to let them ride along in exchange for cash, and Amber's insistence that this is simply her fate. With only 19 hours left before her deadline and no other way to make it, the group climbs aboard Bernard's truck. After negotiating safety terms, someone stays up front with him at all times, and they send photos of him and his vehicle to friends just in case. Settling into the cargo area, the group drinks, jokes, and plays truth or dare as the night goes on. Though Amber can't shake an eerie feeling looking at the boxes surrounding them. Boxes Bernard's made clear are strictly off limits. Things take a turn when the truck jolts violently, throwing everyone around, and Bernard brushes it off as swerving to avoid an animal on the road. When they try reaching Eric up front, Bernard claims he's simply asleep and refuses to wake him, growing increasingly dismissive of their concerns. With no cell signal out in the remote countryside, panic starts setting in, and pleas for Bernard to just pull over go completely completely ignored. As the truck rattles on, the group notices unsettling details. Existing breathing holes in the walls, dents from the inside, and a bloodstain none of them fully process in the moment when Fiona finally cuts into one of the mysterious cargo boxes with her knife. Blood sprays out, and the truck suddenly grinds to a halt and reverses direction entirely. Armed only with flashlights, the group prepares for the worst. As the shutter finally opens, they step out into what turns out to be an abandoned slaughterhouse, recognizable from an old pig logo still visible on the wall. And before they can get their bearings, Ray is snatched from the ceiling by something unseen. His severed head lands in front of the horrified group moments later, confirming they're being hunted by some kind of flesh-eating creature. Fiona is grabbed next, managing to stab it in the eye before Peter intervenes with a metal pipe, though the creature ultimately overpowers and kills him too. Amber and Susie manage to pull Fiona free temporarily, but she's fatally wounded in the process, and shortly after, Susie herself is bitten before Amber and Peter can pull her to safety. Though Peter is finally taken by another creature moments later, leaving nothing behind but his blood-soaked pipe. Amber and Susie barely make it back into the truck, sealing themselves inside just long enough to catch their breath until the door is forced open again. Amber improvises a makeshift weapon using alcohol-soaked fabric and a lighter, but a creature breaks in and sets the entire truck ablaze before she can use it. Fiona, still alive at this point, is finally devoured while trying to reseal the door, giving Amber and Susie just enough time to escape through a side compartment. Now stranded in what they realize is an entire town overrun by these creatures. The two girls hide behind a dumpster, racked with guilt and grief, especially once a pile of their friends' remains spills down beside them. Their attempts to call for help go nowhere, and they soon witness Bernard getting confronted by a woman named Veronica over the hole made in his truck, who lifts him off the ground by his throat before having her assistant, Max, pay him off and send him back out to search for the missing girls. Once Bernard leaves, Veronica reveals to Max that she's deliberately letting her newer creatures go hungry today, wanting them to learn proper hunting discipline rather than wasting their food. She drinks from a blood bag while the hidden girls watch in horror, and using Eric's phone, she calls Amber directly just to taunt her, sending both girls fleeing the moment his phone rings. They soon find a wounded Eric being used as bait, and despite Amber's efforts to save him, he's killed right in front of her, leaving the girls with no choice but to keep running from the predators hunting them. As Susie's injuries worsen, while hiding beneath a car, she's suddenly torn away from Amber entirely, leaving her utterly alone. When a creature finally corners her, Amber manages to fight back and pin it down, discovering these creatures can actually speak and are being deliberately trained to hunt human prey, typically addicts rather than random victims. She learns Veronica isn't their biological mother, but acts as their caretaker regardless. When more creatures close in, Amber flees, witnessing firsthand their inhuman speed and agility. Eventually finding Bernard hiding in his truck, she beats him to death in a blind rage before realizing the vehicle won't even start. Chased inside a nearby building, Amber fights off wave after wave of these creatures until she's completely surrounded with no way out. And in that desperate moment, her own survival instincts awaken something unexpected, letting her leap and climb with the same supernatural ability as her attackers. Veronica isn't remotely surprised by this development, calmly explaining that Amber has simply awakened as one of their own kind, a rare occurrence she hasn't seen happen in a long time. She describes the same symptoms Amber's clearly experienced already, a craving for raw meat and a growing distaste for regular food. While Amber recoils in denial at the sight of blood, despite everything pointing to the truth, Veronica invites her to embrace this new life, even suggesting Amber's own birth may have inadvertently killed her biological mother. After the brutal night she's endured, Amber accepts a bag of blood offered to her, but draws a hard line when Susie is presented to her as a meal instead, refusing entirely, setting the building on fire. She escapes with Susie in tow, and Veronica makes no move to stop them, confident Amber will eventually come back on her own. As morning breaks, the two exhausted girls finally get a moment to rest. But when Amber returns from gathering supplies, she finds a man attempting to assault the barely conscious Susie. Her instincts take over entirely, and she kills him without hesitation. Once the adrenaline fades, a shaken but accepting Susie takes her hand anyway, choosing to stand by Amber regardless of what she's become.